Before we start our tale, we'd love for you to comment where you're joining us from. And please remember to like and subscribe to help our channel flourish and bring you more poignant stories. Now on the desk. In Zenzel's corner office, Sterling's image beamed at her from a silver frame. Zenzel smiled back at the cherished photograph. Her fingers drifted across her phone where a digital countdown marked the moments left until she and Sterling were wed. Just 23 hours and 58 minutes remained. Tomorrow at this very moment she would officially be Mrs. Sterling Beaumont. The name felt as though it was crafted for her, a promise etched into the very pages of destiny itself. To her, Sterling was far more than a simple fiancé. He was the architect of her joy, the man who arrived carrying the blueprints to a perfect life, filling voids in a heart she had long kept guarded and closed. They had built their future together, not with mere words, but with concrete actions. Their dream home under construction in the exclusive Buckhead suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, was one such example, and it was already nearing completion. Their honeymoon to Santorini in the Greek Isles was booked. Even the names of their future children were lovingly penned on a small note tucked inside her diary. In a world filled with so much doubt, Sterling was Zenzel's one certainty. He was the answer to every desperate prayer she had ever whispered into the night. Her phone buzzed gently. A message from Sterling appeared. "Thinking of you. Come home soon, my future wife." A sudden warmth flooded Zenzel's heart, and the exhaustion from a long day of proposals and figures began to melt away. As if by magic, it all vanished. He was her entire world, a place where smiles never faded. She tidied her desk earlier than usual and powered down her laptop. But instead of going straight back to her downtown condo, a wonderful idea sparked in her mind. A final surprise before their sacred vows. She would cook him a beef Wellington. It was the very dish Sterling raved about whenever they visited the finest restaurants. This time she would create it with her own two hands as a testament of her love, the meal that would mark the end of their wonderful single lives. Her heart racing with excitement, she made a stop at the gourmet section of Whole Foods Market to get the finest ingredients: premium beef tenderloin, fresh cremini mushrooms, and an imported puff pastry. She chose each item with meticulous care, picturing Sterling's delighted smile with every bite. Arriving at Sterling's bachelor pad a short while later, she went right to work in the kitchen, a space that was already so familiar. The scent of butter and mushrooms soon filled the air with loving warmth. 2 hours passed, and her masterpiece was complete. The beef Wellington with its perfect golden crust rested impeccably on a serving platter. To maintain its warmth, she placed it in a thermal container and drove to Sterling's current residence, the place he was staying before they moved into their new home together. In her hand, she clutched the spare key to their future. She let herself into a dark and silent apartment. Only the faint glow of the city lights filtered through the large living room window. He must be asleep, she thought, exhausted from all the final wedding preparations. Preparations! Zenzelli whispered, her mind struggling to comprehend. With deliberate caution so as not to make a sound, she placed the insulated container on the kitchen counter. Moving like a shadow, she went toward the one door left slightly ajar, which was the master bedroom. What she heard from the narrow gap wasn't tired snoring, but instead the muffled chuckle of a woman. A delicate, coy laugh. But what made it truly horrifying was that she knew that sound all too well. It was the sound of her own assistant, Talia. Zenzelli's heart seized in her chest. She felt like the blood had turned to ice in her veins, a chilling cold permeating her very bones. For an instant she was paralyzed. Her feet felt fused to the cold stone beneath her. She desperately told herself she had to be mistaken, that Sterling could be on a speakerphone call, but her mind refused the flimsy excuse. Her hands shaking uncontrollably, she shoved the door further open. The sight that met her gaze ripped her very soul apart. Zenzelli's entire world, which had once been so brilliantly colored, became a dull gray before silently shattering into pieces. The very man who was meant to be her husband on the morrow, Sterling, whose name was a whisper in her prayers, was in a deep slumber, completely unclothed. In his arms was the person she dreaded seeing. It was Tia, the very woman who called her boss each day and trailed her with loyalty, the one she'd entrusted with her entire schedule. The pristine business suit Talia had on that morning was carelessly tossed over a chair's back, serving as the silent witness to this most vile betrayal. Tia's once sweet perfume now seemed disgusting, like a toxic fume, tainting the very air of the room meant to have hallowed their sacred bond. A painful lump formed in Zenzelli's throat. She felt the burning sting of tears threatening to erupt at any second, but a frigid, unfamiliar force suddenly took command of her mind. She did not scream. She did not cry. Moving stiffly like an automaton stripped of all feeling, she methodically retrieved the phone from inside her purse. The device felt like a cold, heavy weight in her trembling hands. She launched the camera app. The flash flashed 2 times forever, capturing the undeniable proof in a digital frame. But she wasn't finished. Next, she pressed the button to record video. For 10 seconds that stretched into an eternity, she filmed the sickening display, making sure the faces of the 2 soundly sleeping people were perfectly framed. Sterling's peaceful, slumbering face was in clear view. It was the face she had always yearned for, but now it appeared to be a monstrous mask. In the middle of her collapsing reality, she instinctively fixed her messy hair, a tiny automatic motion to salvage some of her shattered pride and keep from falling apart. As soon as the proof was secured in her phone's memory, she darkened the screen, spun around, and slipped away without a sound. Her footsteps were weightless, like her spirit had fled her form. She pulled the bedroom door shut with immense slowness, afraid of waking the 2 serpents sleeping after poisoning her. She glided past the beef Wellington, now cooling on the kitchen island. That very meal, crafted with all her heart now, felt like a final offering at the funeral for her emotions. She departed the apartment, closing the door behind her, leaving behind more than just Sterling. She left behind the love, the trust, and the future that was now a lifeless corpse. Zenzelli. She hadn't slept a wink all night. From the sofa in her condo, she stared intently at the window that reflected Atlanta's vibrant nightlife. Her mind felt barren, her chest a hollow ache. But as the sunrise began to awaken, the city, a different feeling stirred within Zenzelli. It wasn't sadness anymore, but a sharp, cold clarity. She rose, washed her face, and then she prayed. Kneeling on the cold floor, she shed no tears. She just silently pleaded for strength. Not the strength to forgive, but the fortitude to endure and carry out what must be done. Her prayer finished, she did not go back to her bed. Instead, she opened her laptop and started working, typing with a steady rhythm, as if the gale that just wrecked her entire life had never occurred. As the morning truly began, a message arrived on her phone. It was from the very name that now only inspired disgust. Sterling? Good morning, my angel. There's just a little time left before we are together. Forever. I love you. Zenzelli stared at the words with vacant eyes. The same message that once would have made her beam all day now felt like a profound insult. With cold, steady fingers, she typed her reply. Good morning, darling. I feel the same. See you at the venue. She even added a heart emoji to the end of the text. Her facade was flawlessly in place. The office was already buzzing with the cheerful energy of the upcoming wedding. Bouquets and congratulatory notes adorned her desk. Her colleagues approached with wide smiles, remarking how radiant she looked, despite being so busy with the preparations. Zenzelli returned every greeting with the pleasant smile she had practiced in the mirror earlier that morning. It was a hollow smile that never touched her eyes. A moment later, Tia came near, holding a cup of the coffee Zenzelli preferred. Tia's own face appeared a bit weary. She had faint dark circles beneath her eyes, but she had concealed them with heavy makeup and a strained smile. Congratulations, boss. I am truly so happy for you. I'm hoping everything goes perfectly at your wedding tomorrow, she said in the most cheerful voice she could muster. Zenzelli accepted the coffee. As her fingers deliberately brushed against Tia's, Tia flinched for a split second. "Thank you, Tia. You are such a good person," Zenzelli replied. Her voice was gentle, but her gaze was fixed intently on Tia's face, as though she could see straight through the elaborate lie covering it. "Oh, by the way, please prepare the final documents for Project Titan before the lunch hour. The client in Chicago wants a final data confirmation by today." The instruction was sharp and professional, which seemed to momentarily unsettle Tia. "Yes, of course. I will prepare it right away." Tia rushed back to her desk, feeling relieved that Zenzelli apparently suspected nothing. She was unaware that her boss's gaze had just been like a judge who had already delivered the verdict. An hour later, Zenzelli was no longer at the office. She had requested to step out for a short while, using wedding errands as an excuse. In reality, she was now sitting in a private conference room inside a different office tower. Seated across from her was her friend and highly competent lawyer, Carmen, along with Javier, a trusted director specializing in forensic computing. Displayed on the large laptop screen before them were all the photos and the videos Zenzelli captured the previous night. Carmen's face became flushed with fury as she tightly clenched her fists. "What absolute scum will cancel everything immediately, Zenzelli? I will handle it all. We're going to sue them," Carmen cried, her voice quivering. Zenzelli just slowly shook her head. "Not yet, Carmen. This isn't enough," she answered with a coldness in her tone that silenced Carmen. "I have a deep-seated intuition that this runs deeper than a simple affair. Javier, please investigate this." Zenzelli gestured toward the laptop. "Last month, our company lost the project. Titan bid to our rival by a suspiciously narrow margin. I suspected there was an information leak from the start. Trace all digital activity for the past 3 months on Leah's computer and within Sterling's email. Search for anything connected to Project Titan or our competition." Javier gave a firm nod and began working immediately. His fingers flew frantically across the keyboard, bypassing complex security and decrypting data logs. The tension in the room thickened. Carmen gazed worriedly at her friend, who remained astonishingly composed. An hour that felt like an eternity finally passed. Javier pivoted the laptop screen to face Zenzelli and Carmen. "Your instincts were spot on, boss." "Absolutely." The screen displayed a clear, undeniable digital trail, a path of treachery far more corrupt than they'd imagined. Evidence showed confidential files containing cost analyses and bidding strategies being moved from Tia's computer into a cloud storage account. A couple of hours later, those exact files were downloaded from the IP address of Sterling's apartment. 3 days after that, an email with that same file attached was dispatched from Sterling's personal email to the director of the rival company that had secured the bid. The whole scheme was laid bare. This betrayal wasn't just about a matter of the heart. It was a crime where the two people closest to her had sabotaged her career, her trust, and the blood and sweat and tears her entire team had dedicated for months. Zenzelli did not shed a tear. She just stared at the screen, her eyes vacant. Then gradually, a faint, chilling smile formed on her lips, a smile that sent a shiver down Carmen's spine. "Good," Zenzelli whispered, like a venomous snake. "They didn't just break my heart. They attempted to steal the fruits of my labor. Now it is my turn to take absolutely everything from them." Her revenge now had a far more significant target: the family dinner. The evening before the wedding, Zenzelli's final night as an unmarried woman, should have been filled with reverence and warmth. Her parents' residence, a lovely colonial home in the Vine City district, was magnificently decorated. The fragrance of blossoms and the aroma of food prepared with love were mingling. Relatives from both sides of the family had gathered. Laughter and cheerful conversations echoed through the rooms, painting a picture of perfect joy. Zenzelli was seated at the place of honor, wearing a flowing lavender gown. The smile was fixed upon her lips. That smile felt like a leaden mask fused to her face. Though her cheek muscles ached with fatigue, she held the expression flawlessly. Every single time, A relative complimented her and remarked what a wonderful couple she and Sterling were. Zenzelli would just nod and thank them. Inside, it felt as if 1,000 tiny daggers were piercing her. She watched her mother glowing, moving about, ensuring all the guests felt comfortable. She also observed her father chatting warmly with Sterling's father. Their laughter sounded so utterly genuine. Witnessing her parents' unadulterated happiness, guilt sliced through Zenzelli's chest like a razor. Tomorrow she would shatter this beautiful happiness. But as the vision of Sterling and Tia in that bedroom flashed through her mind, the guilt vanished in an instant as the fire of her vengeance roared to life. Sterling arrived with his parents bearing the customary offerings. Sterling was dashing in a fine suit that complemented his mother's gown. He made his way to Zanelli, flashing the most captivating smile he could feign. Before the entire crowd, he dropped to one knee, taking Zanelli's hand and pressed his lips to it softly. "To have you as my wife tomorrow will make me the most fortunate man alive," Ika murmured with all the romance he could muster. The onlookers gasped in admiration, some even wiping away tears of joy. Zanelli felt his lips on her hand like a repulsive jolt of electricity. It took every ounce of her willpower not to snatch her hand away from his grasp. Instead, her smile widened as she gazed intently into Sterling's eyes. "Tomorrow is a day you will remember for the rest of your existence, Sterling," she answered. To everyone else, her words were honey sweet, but only she understood the icy menace concealed within them. Sterling, the master performer, mistook it for a mere outpouring of pure affection. Zanelli's scheme needed to unfold tonight. She required access to Sterling's phone for one final time. Her chance arrived during dinner. As she went for food, she noticed Sterling had left his phone on a little end table near the couch. Precisely as Zanelli had orchestrated, she rose with a glass of red wine and made her way towards it. As she drew level with Sterling, she feigned a stumble on the rug's edge, splashing the liquid all over Sterling's costly shirt. "Oh heavens, I'm terribly sorry, Sterling. How clumsy can I be?" she cried, affecting concern. A small commotion rippled through the room. Sterling was startled and irritated but had to maintain his composure before everyone. "It's quite all right, my love," he insisted, blotting at the deep red mark. The older guests gathered around, offering suggestions. Amid the minor chaos that Zanelli had engineered, she made her move, shielding her actions from everyone. With her body, she swiftly snatched Sterling's phone off the table. The surveillance app that Javier had developed for her was already primed on her own device. Using the short-range sharing feature, one simple transfer and a single concealed installation tap was all it took. In only 3 seconds that felt like forever, the program was flawlessly embedded onto Sterling's phone, leaving no visible icon on the display. She placed the device back in its original spot, just as Sterling headed toward the restroom to clean himself up. Not a single person suspected what had transpired. Later that night, once the guests had departed and silence reclaimed the house, Zanelli went to her room. It had been elegantly decorated and the scent of calming candles drifted softly through the air. Yet to Zanelli, the space felt like a frigid jail cell. Perched on the edge of her bed, still in her party dress, she retrieved the earbuds from her handbag and inserted them. She then launched the app on her phone. This program, disguised as a standard calculator icon, was in fact the command center for the listening bug. She tapped the button to activate ambient sound recording. Immediately, a world of deceit flooded vividly into her ears. She could hear a car door slam shut, followed by Sterling's whining voice. "She completely ruined my pricey shirt with that wine. Still, by tomorrow, all her wealth becomes mine, so I can purchase a whole boutique of suits if I so choose." Zanelli's heart turned to stone. Moments later, she heard Sterling place a call. On the eye, from the other end, a woman's voice emerged, one that was painfully familiar. It was Tia's. "How did the event go, darling? Was it a success?" Tia inquired in a cooing tone. "It went perfectly. My act was flawless. My future mother-in-law was overjoyed, saying I'm such a romantic. Sterling's arrogant, scornful laughter echoed through the line. Zini shut her eyes, her breathing growing labored. You need to be careful, Sterling. I'm a bit concerned. At the office today, the boss's gaze felt a little odd. I fear she might suspect something, Tia voiced with anxiety. Sterling's laughter erupted, once more, this time with more volume. Suspect? Oh, please, Tia. That woman is so besotted with me. She's incapable of suspecting a single thing. She acts all clever at work, but regarding me, she's as blind as a bat. She believes I am her Prince Charming. Don't you worry, my dear. She will never discover the truth. Just focus on our strategy. Tomorrow, after the wedding, I'll convince her to sign a power of attorney claiming it's necessary for the business. Within 1 year, I'll transfer everything into my name, and then we'll file for divorce using the excuse that she is unable to have children or some other lie. After that, we'll be off to live a life of luxury in Monaco for good. Just be patient a little while longer, all right? Zenzel pulled out the earbuds, tossing them onto the bed. The sharp stabbing pain was gone. All that was left was an icy rage that had frozen solid like a block of ice within her chest. Their plan went far beyond mere betrayal. They intended to mock her. Emotions belittle her intelligence and seize the fruits of her relentless labor. That evening, in the stillness of her room, Zenzel did not shed a single tear. With wide-open eyes fixed upon the ceiling, she reached her ultimate decision. What they were about to witness tomorrow was not going to be a wedding. It was going to be a reckoning. The dawn of the wedding day was cast in a peculiar gray light. The overnight rain had left the air feeling cold and humid. It was as if even nature itself could sense the looming tragedy. Inside, Zenzel's room was warm and abuzz with activity. The professional makeup team had arrived at first light. A renowned makeup artist expertly tended to Zenzel's face while the hairstylist crafted an elegant bridal hairstyle. Amid the commotion, Zenzel sat completely still before the large mirror. Her gaze was fixed straight ahead. Her expression was so tranquil it seemed almost surreal. This placid demeanor made the staff marvel. My goodness, my dear, you are the most composed bride I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. The makeup artist praised her as she applied the blush. Typically, they're all just a bundle of nerves. Some even start to break out in a cold sweat. You are truly at peace. You possess such a unique aura. Zenzel met the compliment with a faint smile. Serenity. No, it was not serenity. It was sheer focus. It was the calm of a warrior on the battlefield just before their most crucial battle. With every brush stroke on her face, she felt as if she were applying war paint. Each hairpin securing her hair felt like another piece of armor fortifying her resolve. By 8 o'clock in the morning, all preparations were finished. She appeared flawless. A white bridal gown adorned with inlaid crystals gracefully draped her form, and the long veil concealed her immaculate face, lending an air of mystery. To any observer, she was the happiest bride in the world. Her parents then walked into the room, their eyes welling with tears upon seeing their beautiful daughter, reflection of their only child. My girl, you're a woman now, her father murmured, his voice shaking with emotion as he kissed her forehead. Her mother embraced her fiercely. Be a wonderful wife. You must look after one another. These earnest words pierced her heart like a dagger. She yearned to scream the truth right then, but she restrained herself. She held her parents close, drawing from their hug the courage to face what was coming. Once her parents departed, Carmen came into the room. She wore a pastel blue guest dress, but her expression was rigid. She bolted the door from the inside. Zenzelli, this is your final chance. Are you 100% certain? After this, we can't go back, Carmen said grimly. Zenzelli stood from her chair and walked over to the desk. She flipped open the laptop. On the screen was an email saved in drafts, poised to be sent. I have never been more sure of anything in my life, Carmen Zenzelli stated, her voice firm. She showed Carmen the email's contents. The recipient list was a group including the entire board, all senior management, the director of human resources, and the company's legal department. The subject was in all capital letters. Urgent notice. Evidence of fraud and leakage of company secrets by Sterling Beaumont and Tia Monroe. The attachment contained all the evidence. She had gathered photos of the affair, the 10-second video from Sterling's apartment, and the audio file from last night's conversation crudely detailing the dirty scheme to plunder the company, and most damning of all, Javier's 20-page digital forensics report. This was proof of the bid information leak with precise dates, times, and logged IP addresses. That email was a ticking time bomb meant to obliterate the careers and reputations of Sterling and Tia. I'm scheduling it to send today at 9:15 a.m., Zenzelli declared, adjusting the delivery time for just after the efficient finished, and the marriage was supposed to be official. Carmen gazed at her friend with a look of both awe and respect. The Zenzelli she once knew was a kind, gentle soul. The woman she saw before her now was someone else entirely, a woman wounded so deeply she had forged herself into cold steel. "And what's your plan after this is done?" Carmen questioned. Zenzelli shut the laptop, returning to the mirror to study her reflection. A bride dressed in pure white stood there, prepared to fight a war in the mire. "This isn't merely for personal revenge, Carmen. This is to reclaim my stolen honor. It is to seek justice for our team's betrayed hard work, and to ensure those monsters in angels' clothing will never be able to deceive anyone ever again." A knock at the door pulled them back to the present. It was time to go to the ceremony. Zenzelli took a slow, deep breath and lifted the bouquet of white roses from the side table. As she opened the door, her joyous smile returned to her face. Flanked by her family, she glided down the hallway towards the waiting car, towards the stage that she had perfectly set for judgment. The pristine white wedding sedan moved gracefully through the streets of Atlanta. It parted traffic as if it were carrying royalty to her coronation. Inside, seated beside her, Father Zenzelli's heart hammered not from bridal nerves, but the adrenaline of a gladiator entering the arena. She stared at her reflection in the window. Flawless makeup and exquisite dress. Everything was a costume for this day. It was a shield to conceal the tempest raging within her. Her father squeezed her hand tightly. "Do not be nervous. I'm right here. Everything is going to be all right." Her father reassured his precious daughter with a gentle smile. Zanelli could only manage a weak smile and a nod. "No, Dad. After today, nothing will be okay," she whispered, internally sitting beside the man she adored most in the world, hiding a secret that would surely shatter his heart. She felt like an imposter, but she had come too far to retreat now. Justice demanded to be served regardless of the staggering cost. The venue where the wedding took place was among Georgia's most opulent, boasting high ceilings and dazzling crystal chandeliers, and white floral arrangements adorning every corner. The grand ballroom resembled a fantasy garden. Hundreds of guests filled the seats, esteemed business partners, top executives, relatives, and friends of both families. Every single person appeared delighted. They murmured praises for the event's splendor and how perfectly Zen and Sterling complemented each other. In the front row, Sterling's large family sat with expressions of pride. His mother, a high society socialite, beamed endless smiles at the guests as if she were displaying a prized trophy. Among the attendees, in a more discreet seat, was Tia. She wore an exceptionally elegant champagne-colored gown. Her hair was styled in a chic updo and her makeup was flawless. Seated with a haughty posture, she struggled to hide a victorious smile while gazing toward the altar. Every so often, her eyes would dart toward the entrance. She was waiting impatiently for this matrimonial drama to conclude, so the next act of her lavish life could commence. The grand music signaling the bride's arrival began to swell. Every guest rose as one, turning their gaze toward the entrance. The massive doors parted slowly. The silhouette of Zanelli materialized poised elegantly on her father's arm. The entire hall held its collective breath. Photographers' flashes erupted, capturing the hallowed moment. Zanelli appeared so flawless and pure that everyone present gasped in admiration. She started her long walk down the center aisle. Each step felt as agonizing as walking on shattered glass. She sensed hundreds of eyes watching her in awe, and with blessings, yet all she could feel was a profound emptiness. She produced the sweetest smile she had rehearsed all night long. She moved with absolute dignity, her chin held high. Her gaze remained locked on the man waiting for her at the end of the altar, Sterling. Positioned beside the officiant, he was dressed in a white tuxedo that complemented Zanelli's gown, looking exceptionally handsome and distinguished. His smile was broad and filled with relief. A sparkle lit his eyes as he watched Zanelli draw nearer. He was convinced he had already won. He believed this secured his passage to ascend to the highest echelons by marrying the brilliant and wealthy Zanelli. He was completely unaware that he was gazing upon the executioner striding elegantly toward her scaffold. Zanelli arrived at the altar's end. Her father released his hold on her. Hand kissed her forehead one last time, then placed his daughter's hand into Sterling's. The instant their skin touched, Zenny felt a cold shiver run down her entire spine. Gazing into Sterling's eyes, she desperately searched for any trace of the love that once had been there, but found only a shimmering falsehood. Sterling then guided her into place. They now stood next to each other in front of the officiant, the witnesses, and the parents of both families. The ceremony began, and the officiant's soft, commanding voice started to speak of marital virtues. Yet that voice was nothing more than an empty drone in Zanelli's ears as her mind was completely elsewhere. Her focus was fixed solely on the large digital clock on the back wall of the hall, seen only by her 913. Her heart hammered in her chest, sending an icy chill through her veins. She glanced over at her co-workers among the guests. They all sat quietly, some of them appearing visibly moved. They were blissfully unaware of the tempest about to erupt on their phones. All right, we shall now proceed to the questions for the marital declaration, the officiant announced, concluding his speech. His gaze shifted between Sterling and Zanelli with a warm, kind smile. Groom Sterling Beaumont and bride Zanelli Martin, are you prepared to pledge yourselves to this marriage with a true heart? The question echoed through the silent room. Sterling's reply was clear and confident. Yes, I am prepared. His eyes shone as he gazed at Zanelli. He appeared to be saying, "We've finally made it, my love." Then it was Zanelli's turn. Every eye in the room fell upon her, expecting the inevitable answer, yet Zanelli was completely still. She didn't nod or smile. She just stared intently at the clock on the wall. 9:14. Her face remained completely expressionless, her gaze utterly empty. A peculiar, unforeseen silence rippled through the room, creating confusion and unease among the guests. Sterling started to feel that something was amiss. He gently gave Zanelli's arm a subtle nudge. "My love," he murmured with concern. His smile started to falter. In the front row, their families exchanged anxious looks. Bride Miss Zanelli, the officiant's voice cut through the silence again, laced with concern and confusion. Assuming the bride was simply overcome with nerves, he offered her an encouraging smile. "Bride, are you prepared?" The question lingered in the air again, feeling significantly heavier than the first time. Sterling's panic was mounting. His grip on Zanelli's arm tightened desperately. "Zanelli, what is the matter? Please answer me." He hissed, his whisper filled with urgency. Any trace of a smile had now vanished. But Zanelli was unresponsive, as if she couldn't hear him at all. She continued to stare forward, her eyes locked on the clock's second hand ticking down like the final moments before a detonation. 5, 4, 3, 2. At the precise moment, the minute hand landed on the number 3, and the clock read 9:15. Zanelli drew a deep breath. her movement so poised and calm it was completely disarming. Then Zanelli stood up from her seat. A collective gasp swept the room as everyone held their breath. A whisper rippled from the back. "What's happening? Is she about to faint?" Sterling shot to his feet, trying to pull Zanelli back down by her arm. "Down. Zanelli, sit down. Are you trying to humiliate our families?" He snarled through clenched teeth. Zanelli wrenched her arm from Sterling's grasp with a suddenness that stunned everyone. Her eyes were no longer vacant. Those eyes, that had appeared so placid now, blazed with a cold, piercing fire of pure rage. Wordlessly, she strode with clear purpose towards the front of the altar and took the microphone from before the officiant. The stunned man simply frozen in place, unsure of what to do. The hall, which had been growing loud, fell into a stark, perfect silence. Everyone sensed that something huge and terrible was about to happen. Zanelli pivoted to face the hundreds of guests. She swept her eyes across the room, taking in her family's unease, Sterling's strained relatives and curious friends. At last, her gaze locked onto a single target: Tia. Tia sat paralyzed in her seat. Her once glowing face was now ashen, and her eyes were wide with sheer terror. It was dawning on her that this was not the outcome she had anticipated. After holding Tia's gaze for several moments, Zanelli turned back to Sterling, who was frozen with rage and utter confusion. Zanelli raised the microphone to her lips. Her voice, clear, composed, and resolute, echoed through the entire hall via the speakers. Then she uttered the first sentence: "I am calling off this wedding." A complete hush fell. It was as though all the air and sound had been vacuumed from the room. That short statement struck the guests like a quiet tidal wave, leaving them all frozen in their seats with jaws agape. Zenzel's and Sterling's families shot to their feet as one pure shock etched across every one of their faces. "Zenzel, what are you doing?" her mother shrieked frantically. But Zenzel dismissed the cry. She had more to say. She went on. This time her voice was a fraction louder, sharper, and laced with deliberate weight. "I would like to express my sincere thanks to my fiancé, Mr. Sterling Beaumont, and my secretary, Miss Tia Monroe, for teaching me a crucial lesson on my final evening as a single woman." Zanelli paused for effect, allowing the name Tia Monroe to hang in the silent air. Every head turned their eyes, collectively searching for Tia, for showing me that loyalty is a virtue neither of you possess. The moment she finished speaking, before anyone could grasp what was unfolding, the quiet was shattered. It was not by screams or by insults. It was a sound far more chilling. It was the sound that signaled Zenzel's digital bombshell had just detonated flawlessly. Ding ding beep. At once, dozens of email and message alerts began to chime from the guests' mobile phones. These were Zanelli's colleagues, executives, and managers from her firm. Just like a fire alarm blaring in the dead of night, the hallowed atmosphere was instantly transformed into a chaotic scene of digital panic. Guests whose phones chimed instinctively glanced at their screens, their expressions shifting in a heartbeat, from confusion to shock, and then, as they read Zenzel's email, to pure horror and fury. They viewed the photos the transcripts, and opened the attached audit report. Utter and uncontrollable chaos broke out. Managers glanced at one another in disbelief. Department heads began to mutter, their voices thick with rage. In the center of this hell, Sterling and Tia also checked their phones. After seeing the email's contents, the color drained from Sterling's face. In a matter of seconds, his entire world crumbled. His career, his good name, and his future were utterly destroyed. His phone started to buzz as if it were having a fit. The caller ID showed the name of the company's CEO, Mr. Ortega. On the other side of the room, Tia emitted a sharp cry like a cornered animal, and beneath the scornful gazes of everyone surrounding her, she crumpled to the ground in a dead faint. Upon her altar of judgment, Zenzel observed the carnage with a blank, unfeeling face. With chilling composure, she slid the diamond engagement ring from her finger, deliberately placing it on the table before the stunned officiant. Turning her back on it all, she descended from the altar, gliding past Sterling, who remained collapsed with a vacant stare. Her shocked parents rushed to embrace her. Without a single glance back, Zenzel strode out of the grand hall, leaving the theatrical stage she had just demolished. The majestic doors swung shut behind her, Zenzel and her family sealing the chaos within and reducing it to a dull roar. The venue she abandoned felt like a burning furnace. Guests once seated in silence now rose and formed tight clusters, their eyes glued to their phone screens, their faces grave as they whispered. The photographers tasked with capturing joy were utterly bewildered. Their lenses drifted aimlessly, uncertain of what to capture in the midst of this appalling spectacle. The sacred wedding hall had become the epicenter of a scandal that erupted without a single warning. Sterling remained kneeling before the altar. All strength had drained from his body as though his very bones dissolved. The world began to spin. The hushed whispers buzzed around him like a far-off swarm of hornets. His gaze fell upon the ring Zenzel had left on the table. The diamond's brilliant sparkle seemed to be mocking his utter ruin. The phone dropped beside him buzzed relentlessly. He retrieved it with a trembling hand. Scathing messages from his colleagues flooded in, but what truly made him shudder with dread was the caller's name, his CEO, Mr. Ortega. Grasping at the last shreds of his composure, Sterling tapped the answer button. He had no time to even utter a greeting. The voice on the other end of the line erupted, like thunder. "Don't you ever set foot in my company again, Sterling. Is that clear?" Mr. Ortega's typically composed voice was ragged with fury. It boomed so loudly that even those near Sterling could distinctly hear every word. "You've done more than just humiliate yourself. You've disgraced our company's name. Did you take us for fools? I have all the evidence right here. You and that venomous woman, what's her name, Tia Monroe. You are both terminated effective immediately. By tomorrow morning, your termination papers and a lawsuit from our legal department will be at your door. Don't you even think of contacting a single person at this company. If you do, you will regret it." The line went dead. Sterling stared at his phone, numb. Fired. A lawsuit. It was all over. His dreams, his plans, his future. All of it had vanished in less than 5 minutes. Sterling's father, a man who had always beamed with pride for his son, approached with leaden steps. His face, once filled with pride, was now a mask of fury and shame. Without a single word, his calloused palm slammed across Sterling's cheek. The sharp crack of the slap echoed through the hall, instantly silencing the crowd's hushed whispers. "You are a disgrace," his father hissed, shaking with pure rage. "You have smeared filth on our family name. You've destroyed the honor I've spent decades building, all for your selfish lust and greed." His mother rushed forward to intervene, sobbing. "Darling, please stop. People are staring at us." She turned to her son, her eyes filled with disbelief. "Sterling, how could you? What did Zenzel ever do to deserve this? How could you be so unbelievably cruel?" Amidst the family chaos, Tia began to stir on the other side. No one came to her aid, so she struggled to her feet with help from the catering staff. The first sight to greet her opening eyes was dozens of looks of scorn and derision. She grabbed her phone, praying it was a bad dream, but reality was far more cruel. A flood of texts confirmed her ruin, a termination notice from HR, venomous insults from colleagues, and even a message from her landlord demanding she leave the apartment at once, citing neighbor complaints undoubtedly sparked by social media frenzy. She attempted to stand, but her legs gave way. She had to escape. Summoning her remaining strength, she stumbled out through a side exit, deaf to the shouts of the entertainment press who had already scented blood in the water. The executives and senior officials present were not idle. They couldn't care less about the demolished wedding. This was now a corporate catastrophe. Mr. Ortega was on his phone, speaking with a grave expression to someone. "Get the IT team now. Block all access for Sterling Beaumont and Tia Monroe. Confiscate their laptops and every company asset. Stop them from destroying any evidence. Get the communications team. Draft an internal memo and a press release for first thing tomorrow. We need to contain this fallout. Move quickly. The other guests, shaking their heads in disbelief, filed out one by one, carrying with them the tale of a shocking scandal, the likes of which they'd never witnessed. The once heavenly wedding hall now felt like a vision of hell. The gorgeous floral arrangements seemed to wilt on the spot, the lavish buffet completely untouched. All the opulence had become an ironic set piece for a shattered charade. Sterling was finally hauled from the venue by his father. Each step he took past those empty seats felt like a walk across hot coals. He had lost it all: his love, his career, his honor, and his family's respect. Outside the building, Tia struggled but finally hailed a taxi. The moment she was inside, she began to sob uncontrollably, not out of regret for her actions, but because the sting of failure was so sharp. She had risked everything and had only reaped disgrace and ruin. The stage was now utterly bare. All that remained were the shattered pieces of their lies and betrayal. 2 months had elapsed since that catastrophic wedding day. The seasons shifted, but for Sterling and Tia, the dark shadow of that day seemed to hang over them forever. Karma was moving in silence, but with great precision. Their scandal raged like a wildfire through the industry, evolving from mere gossip into a cautionary tale of professional betrayal. The names Sterling Beaumont and Tia Monroe were now blacklisted by nearly every significant corporation. Each time they submitted an application, the door slammed shut before they could knock. The recruiters who once pursued Sterling had gone completely silent. His esteemed reputation had crumbled to dust and was simply blown away. Just as Mr. Ortega had forewarned, the company initiated legal action. The lawsuit, thick as a phone book, demanded millions of dollars in damages stemming from the information breach. All the money and bonuses Sterling had accumulated over his years of work vanished in an instant to cover the initial legal fees. He was forced to sell his lavish apartment at a loss to fund the litigation. He also sold the flashy sports car he once paraded around. The two of them now had no other option but to live together in a cramped, moist basement flat on the city's edge. Whatever love and passion they shared when they met secretly in hotels vanished without a trace, lost in the cramped space and their mounting troubles. Their days were no longer filled with sweet dreams for the future, but with vicious arguments and blame. "This is all your fault. If you were any smarter, we wouldn't be in this mess," Sterling yelled in frustration after another job rejection from his second interview. "Me, you're the one who completely underestimated Zenzelli. And you got too greedy. How many times did I warn you that she was clever? You just wouldn't listen." Tia shrieked, refusing to back down as she threw her bowl of cheap noodles into the sink. They were caught in a hell of their own making, now bound together only by their mutual hatred and regret. Meanwhile, in a downtown skyscraper, Zenzelli's life was heading in the opposite direction. Following the incident, she took a 2-week leave to heal. Upon her return, she was not greeted with pitying looks, but with respect and genuine admiration. Every employee knew the entire story. They saw her not as a victim, but as the resolute and brave leader who had rescued the company from a pair of traitors. Mr. Ortega pulled her aside. He apologized for failing to identify the internal threats sooner and formally expressed his immense gratitude for her courage. As a symbol of their complete trust, the board approved an extraordinary promotion for Zenzelli. She was named Vice President of Strategy, the very role that Sterling had so desperately coveted. One hectic afternoon, Zenzelli strode through the lobby discussing a new plan with her assistant. Near the main entrance, a small commotion was brewing. 2 security guards were physically restraining a man who was trying to force his way in. Eyes. It was Sterling. His appearance was drastically different. His once perfect hair was a mess. His dress shirt was stained, his face a mask of exhaustion and despair. "Please, just let me speak to Zenzelli for a minute. I'm begging you," Sterling pleaded with the security team. Through the heavy glass door, their eyes locked for a fleeting moment. Zenzelli paused. The man who had once been her fiancé. She gazed at the man she once loved with her entire being. Heart. She could see the desperation, the regret, and the silent plea in his eyes. But inside Zenzelli's heart there was no hatred, no anger, and most tellingly, no love. All that remained was a void, as if she was observing a complete stranger she'd never met before. Her expression remained unchanged as she gave the guards a slight nod, a clear signal for them to continue denying him entry. Then, as if he wasn't there, she turned and continued walking towards the private executive elevator, refocusing on the discussion with her assistant. Sterling could do nothing but watch, stunned as Zenzelli's back vanished behind the closing elevator doors. In that instant, he came to the painful realization that he hadn't just lost Zenzelli. He had become so completely insignificant that he was unable to provoke any emotion in her whatsoever. An article published on a financial news site that same day hammered the final nail into the coffin of Sterling's hope. The headline was unmistakable. Solar Group wins Project Titan rebid with VP Zenzelli Martin's leadership. It was the very project he had attempted to steal. The venture that led to his ruin had now become a monument to the triumph of the woman he had betrayed. His own downfall was the very springboard for her. Gazing out at the city from her new office, Zenzelli read the article with a subtle smile. It wasn't a smile of arrogance, victory, but of profound relief. The chapter of vengeance was now closed. Justice was served. It was time to build a new fortress on the bedrock of her own strength and integrity, not the wreckage of her past. A full year had passed. Time flowed onward like a gentle river, slowly eroding the sharp edges of memory, turning them into smooth pebbles that no longer caused her any pain. For Zanelli, the last year became a pilgrimage to find herself. 6 months after it all, after the legal entanglements with Sterling and Tia were resolved, and the firm was on stable ground, Zanelli made a move that stunned everyone around her. She submitted her resignation. Mr. Ortega was floored. He tried to convince her to stay, offering a higher position, a doubled salary, and even stock options. The company is indebted to you, Zenzel. You're our greatest asset. Zenzel smiled warmly. I have to go precisely because I love this company, Mr. Ortega. As long as I'm here, I'll always be reminded of the shadows of the past. I want to build something that is entirely mine on a foundation I've laid with my own hands. Ultimately, Mr. Ortega let her depart with a very generous severance package and bonus. Her very first move wasn't toward business, but a return home. She spent a full month at her parents' place, sleeping in the familiar childhood room, savoring her mother's home cooking and spending the evenings chatting with her father out on the terrace. Instead of trying to erase it, she truly healed her wounds by embracing them. She forgave herself for being so blinded by affection and finally shook off all the lingering traces of bitterness from her heart. Once her spirit was whole once more, she began to build her kingdom. She leased a small office and established Integrity Consulting with a team of 2. The company's name itself was her guiding principle. Integrity is everything. Her first client was the president of a mid-sized corporation who'd been present at her failed wedding. He came to her and said, I'm not hiring you simply for your excellent strategies, though I'm sure they are. I witnessed with my own eyes that you place honor above everything else. My business needs those values. Word of her reputation spread fast. Zenzel was not selling hollow promises. She delivered real results built on a foundation of ethics and transparency. She became a sensation in the business world. A young CEO who was not just beautiful and sharp, but had principles as solid as bedrock. Requests for speaking engagements from universities and major corporations flooded in. She never mentioned any real names, of course, but she would talk about how crisis can become the ultimate catalyst for growth. She was living proof of it. A queen who fell to the depths, rose again, and built her very own kingdom. She refused to let the trauma define her. She focused on her work, cared for her family, and enjoyed life's small pleasures, a morning coffee weekend reading, brief trips with her dear friend Carmen. She had finally reclaimed her old self, but now a much stronger and wiser version. The peak of her resurrection came exactly 1 year after she founded her company. She was invited to be the keynote speaker for the Black Business Leaders Forum of America 2024. This was a gathering of the most influential CEOs in the entire country. Zenzel walked on stage under the bright spotlights dressed in a striking dark navy suit. She radiated a quiet, powerful confidence. Her topic, resilience: how to turn adversity into your greatest asset. Distinguished leaders, she began. Today, I am not here to discuss textbook management theories. I am here to talk about the most potent fuel source I have ever found in my life: betrayal. The audience held its breath. Betrayal is fire. It can either reduce you to ashes or forge you into a master's blade. The decision is yours. Refuse to fill that agonizing void left by betrayal with a hunger for revenge. Instead, fill it with conviction. Rebuild not with the brittle mortar of blind faith, but upon the pillars of discernment, intuition, and integrity. Her 20-minute speech was incisive and deeply authentic. Her closing words sent a chill through the audience. Ultimately, the greatest revenge isn't watching those who betrayed you crumble. It is soaring to such heights of success that they simply disappear from view. A thunderous ovation erupted. In the networking session that followed, a man approached her. He was tall, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, and possessed a sharp yet warm gaze. Zenzel recognized him immediately. It was Langston, CEO of an IT firm and a panelist from the event. That was a profoundly impressive presentation, Miss Martin. Langston's voice was resonant and courteous. Zenzel offered a smile. Thank you, Mr. Langston. Langston shook his head. Those were not mere pleasantries. Today, I wasn't seeing data or theory. I saw pure strength. I was moved not by your fall, but by the magnificent way you rose. The principles you champion are exceptionally rare in today's business world. His tone wasn't cheap or flirtatious. It held only genuine respect and professional empathy. That evening, their conversation drifted effortlessly from business to life, philosophy, and personal passions. Zenzel felt as though she were speaking with a male counterpart of herself, one who valued substance over superficiality. At that lavish corporate event, a new connection, one free from all deceit, began to take root, and so it began. 3 years later, the Atlanta sky was a vast expanse of clear, brilliant blue. From a glass-walled corner office in an iconic skyscraper in the financial district, Zen commanded a board meeting. Integrity Consulting was no longer a fledgling startup. It had blossomed into one of the premier consulting firms in the entire southeastern United States, commanding 3 entire floors. Its staff had swelled from just 2 people to 200 specialists, dressed in an emerald silk blouse. Zen guided the meeting with her signature blend of quiet authority and sharp charisma. She was not just building a solid castle. She was now forging an empire. Her personal life had also achieved a state of perfect harmony. Zenzel and Langston had celebrated a simple yet profound wedding 2 years prior, attended only by their closest family and friends. They were lovers, but also the best of partners. Their breakfast table was a constant forum for engaging debates. Langston harbored no jealousy for Zenzel's success. The contrary, he was her staunchest advocate, her safe harbor built on mutual respect and trust, where their laughter never faded. It was the living proof that true love was real. That day, celebrating the acquisition of a major contract, Zenzel and Langston dined at an exclusive restaurant crowning the top floor of her company's building. Was a venue boasting a 360-degree panoramic view. As she enjoyed dessert, Zenzel's eyes happened to drift down toward the lobby entrance far below. Amid the constant ballet of luxury cars, she spotted a familiar silhouette, a man working as a parking valet bowing low in a faded maroon uniform. It was Sterling. He appeared gaunt, somehow smaller than she remembered. His shoulders were slumped, his smile to the patrons both servile and utterly weary. Zenzel watched him, her own expression unreadable. A moment later, a delivery scooter pulled up nearby. A woman in a worn jacket dismounted and made her way towards Sterling, clutching a bag of food. It was Tia. Her exhaustion was visible under the heavy, inexpensive makeup as she passed the meal to Sterling. With a hostile look. A glance at their gestures was enough to see that the conversation between them was far from pleasant. Just then, as if sensing he was being watched, Sterling raised his head. How he managed to spot her through the multitude of glass panes is a mystery, but for a fleeting moment, just 2 seconds, Sterling's gaze locked with Zenzel's. Even from that distance, Zenzel perceived it all. The shock, the searing shame, the profound regret, and the devastating realization of his own failure. Langston, noticing his wife's focus had changed, glanced down as well, asking, "Who is that?" he inquired quietly, though he already had an inkling. Zenzel pulled her gaze away to look at her husband. Her eyes held no trace of any lingering emotion for them anymore. There was only a profound peace. She smiled as she glanced down. It wasn't a taunt, but a gentle, genuine smile. "You hold no more power over me. I hope you discover tranquility on your own terms." This was the final closure on that chapter of her past. "It's no one, my love, just part of the cityscape," she answered gently. Langston smiled knowingly and took her hand in his. Zenzel laughed out loud at her husband's quip. Zenzel's ultimate triumph wasn't their misery. It was her own unadulterated happiness experienced from such a height. Their existence had been reduced to a mere speck of dust on the wind. 10 years is a long period, enough to transform a city, shift a government, and let deep wounds mend, leaving behind only a faint silver scar. A peaceful, lovely home in Atlanta's Alpharetta suburbs. The setting sun painted the sky a deep violet. In the manicured backyard, a 5-year-old girl's laughter chimed like bells as she playfully chased fireflies. Her name was Alba Dawn, truly the singular light of Zenzel and Langston's world. Zenzel was on the terrace sipping hot tea. She was barefaced, yet radiated a serenity and joy that no lavish possession could ever purchase. Langston emerged with a light blanket and draped it over Zenzel's shoulders. Sitting beside his wife, he wrapped an arm around her, and they gazed at the most cherished sight in the universe, their laughing daughter. Zenzel's life had discovered its most beautiful rhythm. Integrity Consulting was now a regional powerhouse, though Zenzel had stepped back from the daily management, retaining only her role as board chair. Her priorities had shifted. 3 years prior, she had established the Beacon of Hope Foundation. This nonprofit offered legal assistance and initial capital to women whose careers were cut short or businesses were ruined by deceit or betrayal. She transformed the anguish of her past into a guiding light for others. She demonstrated that even from rubble, a sanctuary can be built for someone. She never shared her full story in public, yet those she aided could sense it. Such profound empathy could only come from one who had navigated the darkness firsthand. Across the same city, beneath a street lamp that refused to go out, an old compact car pulled over. The driver deactivated his ride-sharing app. A long and grueling shift had concluded. It was Sterling. Now in his early 40s, his hair was thinning and exhaustion had carved deep lines around his eyes and mouth. The vitality of his youth was gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a man who had finally capitulated to his fate. He was fired, financially ruined by the lawsuit, and his affair with Tia ended in blame and destitution. One morning, Tia vanished, leaving just a note brimming with scorn. From that day on, Sterling's existence became a ceaseless hardship. Now he made a living driving for a ride-sharing app, a gig that let him stay unseen in the very metropolis he once aimed to dominate. Each day navigating the canyons of skyscrapers where old coworkers thrived, he endured a silent agony, a quiet torment. His remorse wasn't for lost wealth or position. It was a soul-crushing regret for his personal foolishness and avarice for discarding the only real treasure in his life, Zenzel. Then one afternoon, a ride request came through. The destination for the pickup was Integrity Tower. Sterling's stomach dropped. Everyone in the city knew who owned that building. He considered canceling, but the rent was due, and he needed the cash. His hands shaking, he tightened his grip on the wheel and drove towards the imposing structure. His passenger wasn't Zenzel. Instead, it was a youthful employee with a very bright demeanor. During the trip, she was on the phone with a friend. "I know it's incredible. Chairwoman Zenzel visited our department today. She is truly an amazing woman, just so impressive. She has this powerful presence. She told us hard work matters, but integrity is essential. I feel so fortunate to have a job here." Sterling's knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheel. The very name of the woman he'd attempted to ruin was now uttered with reverence and admiration. He felt like a phantom, haunting the wreckage of his former life, hearing echoes of the world that might have been. After he dropped off the passenger, he pulled his car to the curb. In the distance, he saw the Integrity Tower gleaming against the skyline. At its peak was a life bathed in light while he was stuck in the shadows below. For the first time in 10 years, Sterling finally wept. These were the quiet tears of a man who now completely understood what he had lost. In the meantime, hundreds of miles away in a small provincial town, Tia was working as an administrative assistant in a textile plant. After leaving Sterling, she attempted to start over in New York, but her tarnished reputation clung to her. Ultimately, she swallowed her pride and went back to her hometown. A life of luxury was now an impossible fantasy. That evening, scrolling on social media inside her tiny rented flat, she came across an article titled, "The 50 Most Influential Women in America." Featured at the top was Zenzel's photo, her smile serene and poised. Tia gazed at the screen, utterly shocked. There was no envy, only a profound weariness in her spirit. She was just a mere onlooker from the back row, witnessing the triumph of the woman she had wronged. Her jail wasn't made of concrete, but a wretched existence lived forever in the shadow of that woman's brilliant light. Meanwhile, on Zenzel's terrace, Alba was asleep on Langston's lap. "I sometimes wonder," Zenzel murmured softly as if speaking to herself. "If that day never occurred, if I hadn't faced that deception, would I be in this place? Would we have ever met? Would Alba be here? And would I have this tranquility?" Langston nodded, gazing at his wife's face lit by the moon's glow. "Maybe not. But destiny works in strange ways. It guides us through the most harrowing tempests to our rightful haven." Zenzel offered a smile of genuine thanks. She gazed up at the constellations. Her past was no longer a tragedy but a harrowing process of purification. It was the cleansing flame that incinerated deceit, revealing her authentic core. The treachery of Sterling and Tia was not the final act of her tale, but the brutal essential prologue to her most beautiful chapter. Beneath the celestial glow, enveloped in genuine love, Zenzel felt whole. Her victory wasn't in vanquishing her foes. Her profound joy was her ultimate triumph. Did this story resonate with you, and from what city are you watching? Let's connect in the comments section. If you enjoyed this narrative, consider supporting me with a super thanks to help create more tales of this nature. Your kind support means the world to me. I'm eager to read your thoughts on the story. On your screen now, you will find 2 other life stories I personally endorse. My channel has much more to discover, so please remember to subscribe. Until the next life story, with much love and respect.